Hey, Joe here. Thanks for visiting Road Trip Joe, and thank you for being my patron. So my DNA results are in, and you know what I found out? Absolutely nothing, which is probably why we are all a little underwhelmed when we get these kind of tests done. So I pretty much confirmed what I already knew. And just what did I confirm? Well, that I'm an old white guy living in America whose DNA goes right back to Western Europe. In fact, 93% of my DNA comes from Britain, Western Europe, and you guessed it, Ireland. So I guess the story my grandfather, my dad's father, told my mother about having a Cherokee grandmother or great-grandmother on his side of the family was baloney, just like she suspected it was. I don't think she was a real big fan of her father-in-law. So, no Indian princess in my DNA, it seems, but I have to come from somewhere, right? Well, here you go. Here's my DNA results. When I first opened up the site with my DNA test, this is what I saw. Just like I said, 41% British, 36% Western Europe, and 16% Irish. So it's true. We all have a little Irish in us, which I guess means St. Paddy's Day is going to be a little more festive for me from now on. The rest of me was what they called low confidence level DNA, and it showed the remaining 6% or 7% of what I'm made up of, which included 3% of the Iberian Peninsula. The Iberian Peninsula, it seems, makes up Spain and Portugal. You know, I didn't know that's what they called it. Learn something new every day, I say. And then there's Western Europe, which includes France, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Luxembourg, and Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein, really? Well, that's kind of cool. Still white, though. And for some reason, I'm missing 1% of something. All of my other DNA that makes up the other 4% shows that most of it is, well, it's missing. 3 of the 1% actually show them to be less than 1%. Go figure. How can you be less than 1% of something? Okay, so I'm missing 1%, but I'll get by. But all of my relatives, at least 93% of them, or the 93% of the DNA I'm made up from, came to the same place in America, the South. Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana to be precise. At least according to Ancestry, because I think they started out somewhere else in the new land, like Virginia and Pennsylvania, and then made their way down to the South. So, no exotic bloodlines in my body, it seems, which I think might be my biggest disappointment. Nothing against old white people from Europe coming over here. Their trek to the new country was both brave and historic, although I suspect they were all indentured servants starting out. But part of me was really kind of hoping for at least some Native American bloodlines, or maybe even some Asian stuff thrown in. So after staring at this page for what seemed like an hour with probably a sour face, I clicked around on a few links, and most of them ended up on some page from Ancestry trying to get me to buy into their family tree system, which is fine. You gotta make money somehow. This isn't a freebie, I understand. And the reason I chose Ancestry was, well, the price was right, and they do have the biggest data collection in the world when it comes to genealogy. But one of the links said, hey, we matched you up with all of these potential cousins, so why don't you take a look? So I did, and it was free, but what I saw made me think, hey, maybe this wasn't a waste of effort and time and money after all. Right there near the top of the page of these 1,000 plus or so potential cousins were 6 people they linked my DNA to with a high confidence level of being one of my second or third cousins. And the third one down on the list was a guy with the last name of Golden. Bingo. Now, if you remember my first video on this, I talked about my mother who was adopted. Her birth name was Mary Elizabeth Golden, and I was sitting there looking at a potential second cousin with the last name of Golden. And while she always suspected her adoptive father being her real dad later in life, she started to wonder if maybe his younger brother Martin might have been. So this guy Golden, who lives in Charleston, South Carolina, has taken the test and has allowed his info to be shared on the Ancestry site. There really wasn't much to discover about this guy other than he was born in the 1980s and he or his family have put together his own tree, but if you want to see that, you have to pay some money. But while I'm reading about this guy, I see this link that says, send a message to so-and-so. Oh man, a chance to find out something, I thought. So I click on the link and it was a subject box and another box that said I could write up to 5,000 characters, which was actually a lot, it turns out. So I got after it and sent him a 4,300 character message, which now I wish I hadn't. But I was overcome at the moment, it seems, and sent this really long and confusing note to this guy who doesn't have a clue who I am. Right after I sent that note, I realized I was telling this guy that someone in his family, not sure if it was a man or a woman, but someone had an illegitimate daughter, my mom, back in 1925. Probably not something a lot of people want to hear about their ancestry. What I should have said was something short and sweet, like, hey, Ancestry says we might be cousins, so would you mind if I find out a little more about your family? Boom, that's it. That's all I had to write. Of course, he never responded. At least not yet, but I'm not holding my breath. But still, I know. Dumb move on my part. Now, this guy has a family tree available for members to see with like 300 people on it. So if I want to bite the bullet and shell out $20 a month or so, I can just go through his tree and kind of guess who couldn't keep their pants up. Or maybe their dress pulled down. It does take two, you know. And I might still do that, at least for a couple of months or until my curiosity runs out. But after a day or so of feeling like an idiot, I went back online and started checking out these other potential cousins. There are over 1,000 of them, it appears, and I just kind of stuck with a handful that showed high confidence in our potential DNA relationship. There were, of course, the ones I could identify fairly quickly that were linked to my dad's side of the DNA. I'm guessing they're the ones from Louisiana region and maybe Mississippi and Texas, of course. Lots of those in there. But I will explore my dad's side for sure because I don't know much about them past my grandparents. But it's my mother's side of the family that really intrigues me for some reason. That's a mystery to me, and while my mother really didn't want to explore her real birth parents, she did encourage me to. Now, I haven't been through all of my cousins or potential cousins' info yet, at least what I can see without shelling out the $20 a month. But from what I've seen so far that's free, there is no one on there with the last name of Poole, which was my mother's adoptive family's name. Several Goldmans, though, several of those, which is unfortunate, because if I could somehow link myself to their name, at least biologically, I already have a very extensive record of that entire family. I possess a book written back in 1888 by this Reverend Samuel Houston that gives the entire bloodline all the way back to the old country of Scotland and Ireland. And it's not just names and dates, but also stories about a lot of these people that I might or might not be related to. My mother found it online a few years back and had this old book reprinted. It's funny, though, that my mother spent extensive time looking around at her adopted father's family info, but no time on her mother, Hazel's family, who had the last name of Hawkins. It's probably a good thing that Hazel didn't reproduce, actually. Sorry, though, Mom, no luck on the connections with your dad. So, what to do next? I'm not really into genealogy like my mother was, but I have spent some time on it since I ended up with all these pictures and letters and other things connected to her dad's side of the family. And I can tell you from just spending a little time doing this, it can be kind of addictive. And I really don't know what to do with this stuff, all of these pictures and letters. I guess I can send some of it to my remaining family members and let them toss it away. I'm sure they can do what I cannot. Now, what I have done so far is to start my own family tree on Ancestry. The free one, of course. Although once you get past your grandparents and all those little hints pop up, the Ancestry ads make their appearance. There's that $20 a month again. But stuff pops up that you can look at, like birth certificates, marriage certificates, and the census that everyone filled out every 10 years. I saw a link to my grandfather's draft card for World War I. Did they really have a draft back then? But when I click on it, I get this message. We're giving you access to your history, and if you pay us $19.99 a month, we'll unlock it for you. Really? It's my ancestry and I have to pay to see it? Typical, but you gotta make a living, and they do all the legwork, I guess, not to mention the investment. I wonder how the Mormons got into this anyways. My big question though, and this is the one that really bothers me for some reason, is that when I start filling out my mother's side of the family, am I doing the right thing? I mean, if I'm not really related to these people, the Pools and the Hawkins and the McEwens, at least not through DNA, am I telling a lie? In my mind, yes I am. A lie that I'm not really related to any of them. Maybe not a lie, but for some reason I feel like I need to put an asterisk on there somewhere, like right next to my name. One that says, oh, by the way, we aren't really related by blood, but I do possess most of your family's records and a ton of pictures. There are people, you know, who get their DNA tested just to discover that their dad or their mom is not really a blood relative. And that's funny, really, in that I already know our little illegitimate kid, and I'm trying to track down the owners. But if I go ahead and fill in what I know on the Pool side of the family, I might be doing others a favor. I do have a very extensive record of just who all these people are, or who they were, I should say. I mean, this book has stories in it about people back in the 16 and 1700s, where they lived, what they did for a living, who had a tree fall on them. Yes, that really happened in this book. Some poor guy had a tree fall on him. Like I said in the last video, Presbyterians keep damn good records. But so far, I have found nothing that tells me that Mom's adoptive dad or his younger brother was her real father. And that might be why Mom never really wanted to pursue just who her real birth parents were. She wanted to believe that her adopted father was her real father, and that was good enough for her. As for me, well, I didn't know her father, and even though I'm named after her, my curiosity has always been about her birth parents. If it comes out that Joseph Banks Poole or his brother Martin was her real dad, then great, I'll go with that. But if not, then where is my mother's bloodline? Well, it's probably with that Golden guy that I wrote that really dumb long note to. I think I'll do my dad's side first, though, which seems to have a lot of Confederate numbskulls on it, and it appears that these people are really into this DNA thing because I have found plenty of family trees that link to my DNA. One thing I have discovered, though, about my dad's side is that even though most of them came from Scotland, Britain, and Ireland, they have pretty much been here the whole time. I mean, these people have been here for centuries. Seems they all came over on the Mayflower or something, and almost all of them fought in the Revolutionary War and all those other skirmishes we had before independence was declared. So I guess I can't go to Ellis Island and look one of them up. They got here before we bought that piece of real estate for $24. I'm assuming Ellis Island was part of the purchase. But maybe coming from most of the earlier settlers isn't such a bad thing, is it? I'm not a Native American as my DNA points out, so I'll just be content to be part of the second wave that showed up after the Native Americans. Even though we are a little late, I guess. At some point, I suppose, I'll probably have to embrace the idea that I'm just this old white guy with distant relatives from Western Europe. And these relatives never married outside of their family either, since it's a solid 93% of me. And that's kind of scary, really. I'm still holding out for some of that Cherokee blood, though. There was one lady in the tree, on my dad's side, who had just one name. That's it. Her name was Indian, and she was born in 1690 in Mecklenburg County, Virginia. Seems she was my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother. Yes, that's 6 grandmothers ago. Okay, a Mohawk, maybe an Iroquois. I'm good with that. Well, in Virginia was the Monacan Indian nation that lived in that area. Until my distant relatives arrived, that is. And that was probably the end of the Monacan Indian nation. Typical white people, which, well, I guess I'm one of them. And that's a real bummer. Man, 1,400 potential cousins. Where do I start? That's all I got.
chopping down that old cherry tree. And you wonder
Joe here. I am making my way back out to the pastures. That way. Dinah's waiting for me to come back at some point. I'm going to herd donkeys. Ooh, it's windy. Find the donkeys, which right now there's like no donkey in sight. This is what's happened the last few days. There are no donkeys anywhere. But I have a feeling before you guys left, you probably got together and said, hey, let's have a little fun with Joe. Let's see if he can herd donkeys. Bonnie probably said, Barry, you can't herd donkeys, you know that. Barry said, well, Joe doesn't know that. We have a donkey sighting. Look what I have. Oh, there she goes. They know they're coming up. Come on, baby. Look what I got. I got some food for you. I got some food. Come on. And these guys are just watching the whole ordeal. They're just watching the whole thing. They're not moving. You know, donkeys are related to mules. Okay, so, no. There you go. Come on. Oh, see? The pumpkin comes. Come on, baby. Come on. Come on. Here we go. Come on, baby. Come on. Oh, yeah. Good girl. Now, I put one of their bowls in here. Let's go in here. See, I already have her bowl for her. There we go. Come on in. Here we go. Where'd you go? Come on. Oh, no. Oh, my God. There she goes. Yeah, it's official. You can't herd donkeys. Good everywhere. Come on, baby. Let's go. Here we go. Come on, let's go. I got your food. I got your food. Come on. Let's go. She can still move. There's some dinner. There we go. We'll get behind her. And we'll go cluck, cluck, cluck. Come on. Here we go. There we go. Good girl. That's a good girl. That's a good girl. Okay, to the right. This is where I lost it the other day. She went in the corral. Oh, good girl. That's a good girl. Come on. Cluck, cluck. Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Oh. All right. You guys are in for the night. Locked up. Got plenty of water. There's Tanya watching the whole thing. She's going, what the hell's going on, man? Joe here. I got the donkeys up. They're back there. The horses had a good time watching all of that. I got lucky. Last night or the night before, one of them, Sophia, had gone all the way down on the other side of this pen. And Pumpkin was over there by my trailer. You can't herd donkeys. You saw it. You saw it right here. I didn't sing to them though. I sang the other night. They didn't like that either. That's all I got.